Hello, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. Here's today's severe thunderstorm risk areas, the outlooks for the next several days. Still a pretty active period, including today's upgrade to a level 3 out of 5 in several areas in Kansas and Colorado. Large area of severe thunderstorms possible. Everything that's in the dark green or yellow or orange has severe weather potential, with obviously the level 3 being the highest risk area there and there. We'll zoom in on that and take a look at what's going on there. So right along I-70 in Kansas, from Topeka on over to Hays is in that enhanced level 3 out of 5 chance. And then a pocket here just off to the east of Denver. That is tornadoes and hail pretty much with that risk. Let's take a look at that, break it down. The SPC has gone with a 5% tornado risk from areas north of I-70, including Manhattan, Salina, all the way up pretty much to the Nebraska border, and a separate pocket there in eastern Colorado. Pretty active. Now on the intensity, if they don't mention intensity, it doesn't look that it looked like the tornadoes would be brief. So this area is meant to be maybe not an emphasis of tornado, even though one might occur, it would be brief and very weak. When they do put the intensity scale in the forecast, like here, the hatched area, they are assigning percentages to that. So even though these both have equal chances of a tornado being produced, this one is maybe a little bit meatier because they are bothering to actually list out what they think the intensity potential will be. Still, this is the lowest intensity level out of the three that they have to choose from. So, and you can clearly see here, if you look at the percentages, that we're looking at, just about 80% of that's going to be on the lower level of the intensity scale. While we're on the subject of tornadoes, let's go ahead to Tornado Cast for today. It is putting that 5% area there, probably including a little more of the Denver area, and all points to the east and southern Illinois, all part of that same system that produced tornadoes in the Ozarks yesterday, which I have put on Facebook in a couple of different places if you want to check that out, including a video. I didn't get the tornado, but it was clearly a wall cloud passing north of where we were in southern Springfield. On the severe hail side of things today, there's a 15% chance right here in this yellow area from the part of I-70 that goes from Salina to Colorado, pretty much, and then up into parts of Nebraska too. Now, looks a little more serious, and this is kind of in line with what Colorado is capable of this time of year. They typically become kind of a hail capital here, and just like Florida becomes the lightning capital in the summer. And so the hail intensity is the next level up, intensity 2. So what you're saying, all this is they pick categories 1 to 1.5 inch, 1.5 to 2 inch. Those remain the same. The percentages change. So you go from this intensity 1, where it's 51 and 32 on the lowest end of this hail scale, if you will, to 40 and 35. So it just kind of skews it. 5% chance more of something greater than 2 to 2.5. So you kind of get the idea here. So larger hailstones are expected here, and the next intensity level down there. And predictably, NATOcast hail risk has a very high 45%. Actually, does that go up to 60%? Yeah, that's 60% chance of severe hail, which is defined as 1 inch or greater. And this striped area here is a 10% chance of a 2-inch hailstone or greater. Now, on the wind end of things, it's on the opposite end of the outlook spectrum. So the wind is expected to kick in. This was the hail area. This is the wind area, and maybe that's where the weak tornadoes might occur, but a 30% chance of a severe wind in this corridor in red right here. And they have chosen to go to a level 2 on that too. So a big wind machine is expected to develop. I was checking, radar and conditions. It looks like thunderstorms will kind of develop there and slide in this general direction beginning, late in the afternoon, more toward the early evening actually, and then go and spend the rest of the night doing that. So again, the intensity goes up. So again, you're looking at the wind ranges there. Those are in knots. If I get a chance, I'll convert those to miles per hour. It's why 55 knots is the threshold, really 56 knots for severe wind. They just decided to put it in there. Actually, yeah, that's right. And so that's why you get that weird 59 mile per hour mile. It's because it's derived from knots. That's why that's a weird. Like you would think, just make it 60, and some people do. They don't want to say 59. Anyway, you get the idea. But a pretty good. So we're hurricane force winds, which would be 75 miles per hour, are looking a little more probable there north of Salina Again, that area north of I-70, but south of Nebraska. Here's CSU's, Colorado State University's outlook for today. They're just really talking about tornadoes in northeast Colorado and not as high on the percentages with hail and wind, which is the yellow area, 15%. Kind of interesting. All right, still very active. Let's turn the page to Tuesday. This is going to be a tornado and wind machine, too. Level 3 out of 5 on basically coverage of any type of severe weather. So a large chunk of South Dakota, North Dakota, little sliver of Minnesota. The level 2 area goes all the way down to the Oklahoma Panhandle. Let's zoom in just a little bit, or did I? I don't know. But the tornado risk is actually up at 10% now for the Bismarck and all areas north and northeast of that in the state of North Dakota for tomorrow. So again, the percentages mean 10% chance, whatever the number is, of any strength tornado within a 25 miles of any point. So basically, wherever you live up there, you got a 10% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of you. On the intensity scale, they have 3 to choose from. They have bothered to outline the lowest of those areas, so you can see the percentages. Again, this is highly skewed down to the EF1 and 0, but there's a 14% chance of an EF2 and only a 6% chance of something greater. So something to be eyed very carefully. On NATOcast, they have the 10% risk in extreme northern parts of North Dakota up into, is that Manitoba? I believe so. And then the 5% risk goes all the way down to South Dakota. CSU's product, again, puts a 10% risk there, so that's in matching. The hail is pretty threatening. We'll take a look at that. And the wind, too. Let's dive into what the SPC has to say about that for Tuesday. They're at a 30% risk of severe hail. Bismarck and Pierre, both basically in that area, with the intensity staying down at the lowest levels. So about a 17% chance of a 2-inch hailstone or larger in that area. The rest of it pretty small. But still severe, though, I say. Still within the range of severe, which is 1-inch hail. And then on Tuesday, a wind bag, as some people say, 45% of severe wind gusts, which is basically attributed to the fact that a squall line will develop here and produce a straight line wind threat. And if you look at the intensity on that, pretty broad brush at the lowest intensity level. We're not done yet. Let's go to Wednesday, where all this shifts into Wisconsin and parts of Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois. Again, level 3 out of 5. So for that to be a day 3 forecast, today's for day 1, Tuesday's day 2, Wednesday's day 3, is actually a fairly substantial thing to say. I'm strongly considering a storm chase, probably on this end of it. And it's not that I can't go all up into here, but I just don't think the chase country is very good. I'm going to outline exactly where I don't think it's good. Right through here in that highest level. There is a little area here east of Eau Claire that might be okay briefly, but it's just easier to go right to here, start in Des Moines, and see what happens. Let's look at CSU's forecast. They plug a 15% tornado risk there around Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and up into the UP of Michigan. Very interesting up there. They also have this little patch of 5% hanging back in Kansas. So, it's possible I may not have to go that far. Maybe I'll just go out to eastern Kansas. We'll see how that works out for Wednesday. With the hail risk, the wind risk being the second highest of the 3 up in Wisconsin, Illinois, and that same sliver of Iowa. Now, looking ahead to day 3, this shifts from central Missouri up to Chicago, includes Milwaukee, Springfield, Illinois, Davenport, the Quad Cities area, Quincy, all in this, Jefferson City, in this 30% chance of any severe weather within 25 miles. So a pretty broad brush. By the way, folks are in the Ozarks, which a lot of you are. We are in this 15% chance for Thursday. In fact, if you look at CSU's learning machine, here's the forecast I just showed you. Notice that they put a 15% chance back here, which puts the Ozarks in the game a little bit more, especially later on that night if storms were to develop in that area. And then usually if I go beyond this, it's because either we have a 15% chance in a fairly large area, or actually that's the main criteria. So for Friday, again, it's implied this goes from North Carolina up into New York State for Friday. And even on Saturday, we go back into the high plains. So it's an interesting pattern. It wasn't looking good there for a while, but that mid-level blocking pattern broke down, and now it just continues to break down, and now we got all kinds of moisture and instability and a jet stream that is providing enough shear to get these storms organized. Oh, did I put Sunday on there? Did I really mean? No, that's wrong. I just didn't delete that from the last forecast, so that's not accurate. This is, and I finally put the dates in correctly, June 8th through the 14th. This is the severe weather composite, so it just takes the percentage chance of a supercell and adds it up over 7 days. So yeah, you can see everything we just talked about is basically covered in this. Yeah, even more into Michigan than maybe some of the outlooks are suggesting. That's probably Wednesdays and Thursdays outlook is responsible for that. And some of these squares here might be the weekend. We'll see. And then after that, June 15th through the 21st, a subdued pattern in terms of percentages, but a broad pattern of severe storms possible. And then week 3, which is a little off the scale sometimes, it has some issues, goes back and forth a lot, but still very active June 22nd through the 28th.